Hi everyone, welcome to GB Face, our revived weekly video hangout series. My name is Ellery Biddle and I am Global Voices editor for the Advocacy Project, and I'm very happy to be joined today by a number of Global Voices community members and partners, all from Mexico, who are going to talk today about this ongoing developing situation around 43 students who went missing in the state of Guerrero at the end of September. To introduce them very quickly, have joining us from Santiago de Chile, Elizabeth, Juan Tadeo, who is in Mexico City, Maria Luisa, who is in Chilpancingo in Guerrero, very near where the students missing. And we also have Osiris, but he disappeared. So when he comes back, we will talk to him as well. And he is in San Luis Potosí in Mexico. So to give a very, very brief background, what has happened over the last month in Mexico is it's a bunch of events that have come together around the disappearance of 43 students in the southern state of Guerrero who were traveling back from a protest when they had an encounter with police, and they have been missing ever since. In the investigation of this event, a number of mass graves have been discovered in the area that are actually, it's fairly certain, do not contain the bodies of these students, but of other people. So the event has uncovered a great deal of corruption that was known to have existed, but I think it is a degree of evidence and a feeling of crisis that has gripped the country and the world at a level that Mexico has not seen for some time. I wanted to start by asking Juan Tadeo to talk a little bit about the broader context of the situation. This is not an event that has happened out of the blue. It is something that sort of involves all of these strands of politics, corruption, the drug trade. And so I wanted to ask if you could just give us a rough sketch of what is the political and social context of this moment right now?
Of course, Larry. Thank you, and a big hello to everyone who is listening to this broadcast. Saludos a todos también, nuestros escuchas de habla hispana. Well, what I want to say about these violent acts in Guerrero is that they are not new for us Mexicans, sadly. Mexico has been going through a really difficult time with lots of violence in other
Okay, it seems like we've lost Juan Tadeo. So I'm going to ask you to come back later, but to keep things moving, Maria Luisa, could you pick up on this point? I think that would be a good way to go. You're muted.
Yes, now I'm muted. Yes, first of all, hello, and thank you everyone for inviting us. Maria Luisa work at Tlachinolan, which is a human rights center in Guerrero, who have been accompanying the families of the students and the students for well, since the beginning of the event. I think what Juan was saying was it's very important. This is not about an isolated case. This is just an emblematic of the situation that that it's happening in Mexico. I mean, the situation of the 43 students, it's emblematic of the big crisis that we have in the context of human rights and even a humanitarian crisis in the sense of all the violence and the generalized violence that we are living in Mexico, especially in places like Guerrero. The big crisis on disappearances, and also what many of us have been denouncing for a long time, that it's the relation and the collusion between organized crime and authorities, which goes far beyond just the municipality level, but all the different levels in the state. I could say that the situation here, it's very difficult for families because they have been almost for 50 days without their children. These are jobs that come from very poor contexts, but also with high politicized, in a highly politicized environment. So all this mix goes that makes very important the case. But I would really like to point out that even though this is obviously a huge crisis for 43 families and for all the community in Ayotzinapa, this has to be seen far beyond as just as the tip of the iceberg of a very difficult situation and a big crisis and human rights crisis in Mexico.
Could you explain what has happened with the government of Guerrero? And there are officials who have been arrested and are suspected of having some either involvement or you know, complicity in what's happened. And it would be interesting to hear what has the public kind of feeling been about local government sort of before and now after this has happened, and then how does that relate to the broader national politic? Because there's, I guess I understand that there is the difference between state and federal government is very important. Kind of, there's an important interplay happening there that is, it would be helpful to understand better from you.
Yeah, I think it's very important also to notice the difference between the federal level and state level, but we have to understand that this is responsibility of all the state, and that's what people have been screaming out in the streets, you know, like, fue el Estado, it was the state. It's not about just the municipality level or the local level, or because it's, I mean, everybody knows what is happening in the north zone of Guerrero, and this is our responsibility at all levels. I mean, you cannot just see, like, oversee this situation because you are at the federal level and not. So I think it's happening is that once again it's an emblematic case of all the relationships between the municipalities and especially the municipality security forces with the organized crime, where actually it's not about whether it's the bad people and good people, but it's all mixed and all interrelated. I mean, all the investigations that have been seen in related to the involvement of the mayor and his wife, it's just a proof of what's happening. I mean, they were actually involved in the killing of 3 activists a year and a half before, and that's why they are actually under process now, and they are not on the process of judicial process because of the events with the students, but with the events of this killing of 3 activists. And this was already known by the federal level and obviously by the state level. So it's very important to understand that everybody is just either overseeing or related to all these events with relation to organized crime. And it's very, very important to not oversee this because I think it's important to understand what is the relationship between or what is the context where everybody talks about security policies and war against crime, but it's not good against bad. Once again, as I said, it's all interrelated.
Tadeo, now that we have you back, could you, I guess, actually the question about, this is the Peña Nieto mandate to increase security and to really change the dynamics that the drug trade has created there. Talk about how do you balance that with human rights interests that clearly are not being kind of respected or upheld here.
Yeah, well, we have to take into account this is not just Peña Nieto's fight. It was an inherited war or an inherited fight against the drug cartels. How do the human rights can get involved in this kind of fight? Well, that's a trick question for us Mexicans because governments before Peña Nieto or before Felipe Calderón were not very good friends of human rights. So that's an issue here in Mexico, and we have to be able to intertwine the security tasks the state is forced to perform with human rights, which must be respected, but traditionally they have been violated by state in Mexico. So what we really need is strong institutions to fight for human rights. And when we don't have those, we need people and public opinion to try to make the difference here, to force government to take human rights into consideration, I think.
So that of public response, Osiris, you were going to talk to us. Can you talk to us a little bit about the protests that have been happening in Mexico City, in Guerrero, in other parts of the country? What is the scene like, and do you feel like this response is somehow different or taking the public kind of consciousness about these issues to a new place? You're muted. There we go.
Hi everybody, it's a pleasure to be talking with you. I'm a little nervous because it's one of the first times I'm speaking in public. Every day in Mexico City, in practically every city of the country, there are marches, there are civic actions, most of them peaceful, to demand a safe return of the 43 kidnapped students. And many people are wondering why these events have triggered such these actions in a country that is traditionally anesthetized to these acts of violence, or in a country where violence is a common thing. Well, I think many of us think that when we say that we all are Ayotzinapa, it is a literal statement, not only because we sympathize with the missing students, but because we expect effective and expeditious administration of justice. We are not just Ayotzinapa because we are the mothers, fathers, families, because we want to express that we are really friends and loved ones, and that we want justice because we feel at risk. Everybody is feeling at risk in Mexico, even if we are miles away from Guerrero. We all fear endangered, and well, this has to do with a lot of factors. Mainly are related with post-traumatic stress disorder. And well, let me think about it. I'm looking for a document that I prepared for this. Mm,
Actually, so Tadeo was going to say something about the protests as well. So he can jump in and then we can come back to you. Tadeo.
yes, you can
Yeah,
go on.
I wanted to say demonstrations have turned violent in the last few days, and I'm a little worried because we haven't heard the families of the missing students.
The technology is tough today. I'm actually wondering if we can go back to Maria Luisa because Tadeo said he's concerned that he hasn't heard the voices of the families of the students, and you are right there working closely with these people. And it would be great to just know a little bit more about what are some of the things that people are most focused on, what is it like emotionally right now?
Sorry, once again, I'm in mute. I think we have heard enough from their voices. I think actually they have been very outspoken about their main demand, that it's just to bring back their children home. They are very strong and very involved in all the situation with regard to the investigation and with regard to the search. They have been very strong about that the state should not look for their children on mass graves. They should look for their children in alive. I mean, they should be able to actually look for them in different situations and start doing some investigation with intelligence. I mean, with intelligence information. We cannot continue to look for them on mass graves. They should actually do more with regard to the search. They are very outspoken also about their lack of trust in the state authorities at all different levels. So with regard to that, we have been actually trying to gather some independent experts for all different kind of situations, but especially with regard to the forensic work, so they can be actually certain of any information that that the state will give them. And I think the best thing to remember is that after the Attorney General came out and gave the last press conference with regard to to some testimonies from people that were detained and saying that they were probably killed. What the parents say is that they have been killing their children for at least 3 times, and they will continue to kill them in this course. I mean, they have been saying that first they were in mass graves, then they were in another mass graves, then they were burned and thrown to the river. So they have to have really certainty on the information, and we are gathering a lot of independent experts so they can actually have some trust, because there is lack of trust in all the states authorities.
When you say independent experts, so there was talk of these forensics teams from Argentina, but how, I mean,
Yes.
that seems a really difficult piece here, is that how do you trust authorities to investigate a crime like this? I mean, this just happens all the time in Mexico. It's sort of...
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's the thing. I think it's not only about I mean, obviously the most important part is the lack of trust from the parents, but I think in reality, all the society lack of trust I mean, doesn't trust the authorities. So, and this is like the main thing. They won't. The society doesn't believe also in what the Attorney General office or the local Attorney General office will say, and this is just because of all the impunity and of all the other cases where remains, of course, have been given to families without even being identified, or just trying to shut down cases. So it's complicated. I think that's
Elizabeth, is there something you would like to say?
Well, up until now, we have talked about all the reactions in Mexico, and I guess it's also worth speaking a little bit about how this case became different in the public eyes of people not only in Mexico but outside of Mexico, since, as we've said, this is not an isolated case. There have been many other cases of violence throughout many years, including the burning of childcare ABC, for example. That was also a very strong and sad case. But Ayotzinapa, for some reason, it rang the bell of many other groups. For example, here in Chile, the students that have been known to be very outspoken about human rights have already taken the streets to support Ayotzinapa students. In Argentina, for example, Madres de Mayo, which are also a group very keen of getting involved in human rights issues, have spoken about Ayotzinapa. So it's not only Mexicans outside of Mexico that have been speaking about it and trying to make this case something that can join the world into saying, hey, can you help us out to stop this, because we haven't been able to do this for so many years, because most of us don't trust the government to solve this. Maybe we do have some institutions that can do it, but we need some extra help. And the public pressure outside, at least international pressure, has been a key factor, in my opinion, to bring this case up in the light and have the government really take the pressure that no other case has managed before.
Thank you, Eli. I got lost a little bit there myself, but I've returned. Actually, Mary, I want to turn to you. Mary Aviles is Global Voice's brand new Latin America editor, and she is from Venezuela, but currently lives in San Jose, California, in the United States. And so we're especially happy to have her on today. But Mary, tell us about what it is like to cover a story like this, and what are some of the things that you recommend to people who are writing or speaking about it online? How do you write about something like this responsibly, thoughtfully? Give us your thoughts.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry because I lost my voice, but I'm going to try to talk slowly so you can understand. This case is is a very strong case, and it really moved a lot of feelings on the people who are covering right now. One of the things that we wanted to do at Global Voices is just give context to the information that is happening in the social media. Are you guys listening me well or no? Okay. So in social media, there's a lot of things happening. There's where the invitations to flash mob. It is really, you can feel the pulse of what's happening around the case. And as our job is just to give the context. A lot of people need to know, what's happening in Guerrero. I mean, which state have a lot of rates of criminality and violence? What is the power of the narcs in that state? We also want to give a lot of the background, like why these students were attacked. What were the actions that really didn't like the municipal government, that they take some type of revenge of them. So we really try to be always giving the opportunity to those people who are not necessarily portrayed in the mainstream media. And one of the things is like the family of the students. We are really the victims, who are the people who need the answers. And I am happy because at the beginning I was kind of worried about this case. I was like, well, it doesn't have all the attention, like for example, the Morocco girls receiving Nigeria. So, but I see more people, joining this, and I think this is important for me as a journalist. I I see a lot of indifference in the war, and I think this type of case it really shake us and really try to break that indifference and bring people to action. And I think an effective journalism that we can do, and a civic journalism, is really the ones who really go to our actions, to request answers. We really request that the government and the justice system do something. So that's the type of stories and that's the type of action as a citizen, as a journalism, we are really entitled to do. Is just look for the answers and is just look for the justice.
Thank you. Eli, do you want to jump in here?
Yes, I just wanted to say that my perception is that the general public has taken this case. Like, it's been all over the news, at least here in Chile, for example. People talk about it in regular conversations. When they know that I'm from Mexico, they all ask me about it. But I do take the point of Mary that no government has made a statement yet about this. No, no government at all. I mean, there've been some outspoken congressmen, a woman in Costa Rica who said something about it, but there has no official condemnation of this anywhere, except for, of course, the European Parliament. But that kind of, make that statement of we're going to review this. This is not going to take this is not just going to go into the oblivion. But I do think that in the general population, it has taken certain quote, at least in Latin America, from what I've heard in Argentina and in Chile.
It would be good to hear. We're going to have to close pretty soon, but I would like to hear from anybody who's interested, but maybe particularly Maria Luisa and Tadeo, who should, as the Global Voices community, which is a group of people who are activists, journalists, bloggers, and who really care about issues like this and about improving human rights standards throughout the world, who should we be directing our calls to? It's the Mexican government doesn't, this is a very complicated case. So can the European Parliament have an influence here? Could the United Nations? Are there other systems or bodies that we should be thinking about as the place to kind of direct concern and really ask for action to be taken? Who would like to jump in first?
Well, I think public opinion from the outside and within the country must speak out about these events. And I think Mexican government is only going to hear some other governments, maybe United Nations, maybe the European Parliament. And if they don't see other governments are taking actions against this, they are not going to react. They are just betting on this to be forgotten by public opinion, I think. But I think we should really hear what Maria Luisa has to say about this.
No, I think it's exactly that. I mean, the federal government actually didn't do anything related to this case. The president actually said that this was something related to the state level. Up to they actually felt all the pressure, all the international pressure, and they lost important days for the search for almost a week because they didn't think that it was an important issue. I mean, there were 43 students disappeared and 6 people killed, and they say that it was something related only to the state level, and it was the international pressure and the national pressure that made them actually be involved in this and put all the resources that they have been doing up to now. I think it's also something very important is that Mexico has been portraying itself as the champion of human rights for a long years. I mean, like for the last decade, they have been impulsing a lot of things related to the Inter-American system and the universal system. And it is the international pressure that could help for the federal government to continue to be involved and to continue to, I mean, to be putting all the resources in the case, and also to hear the victims, which is the most important part. The mechanisms that we have been using, all the mechanisms at hand. I mean, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights have already granted precautionary measures. The special procedures from the universal system has been very involved in this. Even the Committee on Enforced Disappearance has have been hearing from us. So I think it's what also was Mari was saying, that it's we need the involvement of the state. So everybody outside of the outside of Mexico can push from their governments to actually ask Mexico for accountability in this case. And also not, and I want to say it once again, I mean, this is a very important situation for 43 families, but it's also about 22,000 people disappeared officially recognized in Mexico.
Wow, 22,000.
Officially acknowledged by the federal government, but I mean, can you imagine of all the other black numbers?
Tadeo, did you have a question for Maria Luisa?
Yes, and it's about the victims, actually. If the worst case scenario is actually confirmed and the students are dead, what are the demands of their loved ones, considering the mayor who ordered the kidnapping and possibly the assassination is already in jail, along with other people who committed the crimes? What kind of reparations do the families seek in this case?
I think it's very soon for me to say what they will actually ask for reparations or any other kind of things. But the families have been very outspoken of saying that they will recognize even the worst case scenario if they have some proof that it will actually give them, and if they trust the results. And I think what this means, it's about the right to truth. I mean, what really happened, that they could really know what happened to their children. And also, it's about the right to truth for everyone. I mean, we need to know as a society what's happening and how it's possible that we can just like snitch a little bit in places like in Iguala and find mass graves everywhere. I mean, and also I think it's always about justice. I would say, and even though the mayor it's in jail, he's not processed because of these events. He's processed because of the events of the killings of the other activists, as I mentioned. So it is about the attention of everyone that is involved, but also about the process that to actually challenge the justice system, which we all know it's if not the core of the problems of human rights in Mexico, it's one of the biggest ones. But I think it's always about their access to justice and the right to truth.
Great. I think you mentioned something really important about the dozens of bodies found in mass graves. That's actually part of the problem also, right?
Yeah, no, as I said, it's a right to truth for everyone, I mean, from all the society, and how do we actually acknowledge that the state has or doesn't have the capacity to actually identify all the bodies that we find, and not, I mean, this is just the first point on how to actually identify bodies and bring them back to their loved ones, which are looking for them. It's not, I mean, it's not only the 43 families who are looking for their lost ones, but also for all the society, and how did we came to the point where the north part of a whole state it just become a cemetery. I mean, it's a clandestine cemetery.
Thank you so much. We're going to close very shortly. Elizabeth has a final thought for us?
Yeah, well, just the final thought that I wanted to share openly is that the the most important thing in this case and in any other case are the victims, and the danger of staying quiet is that they won't get the right of truth, that, like we just said. So every effort we do to keep their story alive until we find what's happened, it's worth it. You know, even from lighting a candle, from talking about it, raising it perhaps to our own authorities, or even having other groups join this claim for justice will help. So that's it.
In the same line that Elizabeth, I think it is going to be very important. The pressure the society have been pushed into Mexican government through social media, through Facebook, to Twitter. And I think this is going to be very important to feel the power of people and their phones, and in order to look for answers and to look for action and look for justice.
Okay, thank you all so much. I'm afraid that we have to close now, but I think that the message overwhelmingly from this session has been that the story just needs to be told, and information needs to continue to come out, and people need to continue to actively seek the truth about what has happened in this case and what is happening more broadly with all of this sort of system of crime and corruption in Mexico. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to everybody who watched online, and we hope to see you next week on GB Faith. Thanks so much.